Yo, there you are.
Look at me. Look at me with my tech.
Amazing. With your selfie stand, right?
Exactly.
See? Trying to make your job easier.
You sure did. Look at me now. Except I spent 15 minutes this morning trying to figure out the knobs.
Did you really?
How to tighten it, yeah.
I'm going to open up our Bubba Coos ad with a listener call. So sit tight for 1 second. Okay.
David Lee, Chaz, how you doing? Drummer Dave checking in. Hey, I was listening to the pod, and you guys were saying you got a lot of negative feedback on the previous pod where you guys were eating the burritos. I say do it more. Lean into it. I kind of dug it. Made me want to go grab one of those burritos. And if I'm ever up that way, I will go grab one of those burritos. And that could be a new revenue stream for you guys. So I say go for it. Do it more. Hit up a bunch of places. Have listeners call in with food suggestions. But anyway, just thought I'd chime in on that. Go for it. And barrel or nah, ranch dressing on pizza. I'm going to go barrel, but you eat the first few pieces from the corner without the ranch. Once you get kind of towards the crust, then you start dipping it in. That's how I do it. Keep up the work. Bon voyage.
Drummer Dave for Bubba Coos.
Drummer Dave is a national treasure.
There's a few of our listeners who have hit that level of respect, I think.
It's true. Drummer Dave is right up there, though.
He totally is. So Bubba Coos, today's show brought to you yet again by Bubba Coos, spreading burrito enlightenment from the East Coast of New Jersey all the way to the West Coast of California.
I'd become not bored with burritos. How do you ever get bored with a burrito? But they're all the same, right? Like some are better than others, but they're all the same. Then that Bubba Coos, man, they were not the same. It was not the same burrito experience that I had come to, just become passive about.
Well, because the burrito that you're talking about, the burrito of yore, was based on the Mexican burrito construction, which is kind of limited to a certain number of ingredients. The genius of Bubba Coos was open up the fridge. What do we have as leftovers from last night? Wrap it in a tortilla, baby.
So good. And that's what I want in my tortilla. Who knew? But what I wanted is leftover Chinese in my tortilla.
Well, they still have the Mexican ingredients too, but the entire Mexican menu is essentially 5 ingredients constructed into different forms. So what's in a taco is the same thing that's what's in a burrito, is the same thing that's what's in nachos. You're just kind of repurposing all of it. And it's genius and it's delicious. I'm fine with all of it. But why limit yourself to 5 ingredients?
Why not open it up to the buffalo chicken ingredients of the world?
So Bubba Coos, I decided this morning we need to get to the bottom of where their name comes from.
I was thinking about this. Let's put a little gentleman's bet on it. I'm gonna say,
okay.
I've thought about it. I feel like there's a Bubba involved. I'm gonna say the guy's nickname is Bubba. I haven't accounted for Koo yet, but I'll get there.
I was thinking, when we need to spell it out for the listeners. So Bubba, Koos. It's so close to Kooks. Bubba Kooks. And it's a surf themed. The owners are from the surf skate world. And so I was thinking maybe it's a reference to a kook. There was a dude named Bubba in the first store and they named a burrito after him or something. Then they changed the name of the store after him. I have no idea, but there's got to be a story because you don't just make up that name.
I'm gonna say that Bubba, one of the founders, is named Bubba, and Bubba made burritos at home using leftover Chinese food. And everybody said, man, Bubba's got the coolest burritos. And then it just got shortened down to Bubba's Cool Burritos, which then became Bubba Coos. That's where I'm going.
What if our versions are way cooler and more interesting than the actual version?
I mean, I'm going to say it's New Jersey. It definitely exceeds whatever I can think here on the West Coast. New
It's
Jersey,
possible.
everything is heightened.
So bubacoos.com/surf is where you go as listeners. Download the app from there. You'll save it automatically. I think it'll load $2 onto your account. So you'll save $2 on your first purchase. But the real catch here is if there isn't a Bubba Coos location near you, consider opening a franchise. They are growing across the country, taking over the country. And these guys are listeners of the podcast. So they reached out and they said, hey, we're growing in this way. We love what you guys do, and we would love to be involved in some way. So if you want to spread awareness to our fellow listeners, we would love for you guys to do that. So that's the plan.
I follow Bubba Coos on Instagram now, and it seems like they are opening up a new store every single day, which after our La Mirada experience, there's one Southern California location, which is in sunny La Mirada. Oh, two. Where's the second one?
There's two. I think the other one might be Lancaster.
Okay. I don't count that Southern California. That's rough country. There are two Southern California locations, but my goodness gracious, and it is true, testament, I knew that it was going to be a bad idea to eat food on a podcast. I thought we would show up, take a bite, be done with it. I could not stop eating. That's how good it was. I would open a franchise in my kitchen if I could.
So Drummer Dave says we need to eat more food on air, and I'm not disagreeing with him. What would be the most obnoxious foods that we could possibly eat on air? I was going to say nachos would be crunchy chips.
Which we did. We
a little bit.
I'm gonna say, what's something like a beef pho would be pretty, like a Slurpee or a ramen would be pretty.
You're right. Slurping and then hearing the liquid drop back into the bowl. Yeah. What about poi? Yeah. For the same reason. It's sticking to your mouth, to the top of your mouth, and you're constantly like, nah. Oh, well, we'll save that for our Hawaii show.
Speaking of poi, daughter had a nasty stomach flu that just went on and on and on this week, just malingered forever. And I was trying to think of bland, mushy foods that wouldn't be hard in the stomach, and brought Maltomeal back into the mix. When was the last time you had Maltomeal?
Funnily enough, I haven't had that, but I've had Cream of Wheat's rice version, which is rice of wheat.
Okay. Did you make it for the child and just
did it
yourself?
We're giving him blending that like with a vegetable or a fruit.
Is it really called rice of wheat? Or a cream of
wheat? Cream of rice, sorry. Cream of rice is what it's called. But yeah, we're blending it with like a roasted acorn squash or whatever. And that's his food. But why? What about Maltomeal?
Oh, it just brought back a flood. That's what was fed to me as a young child.
Really?
It was, if it wasn't oatmeal, it was Maltomeal or cream of wheat.
That's what puts so much of that meat on your bones.
Exactly. That's why I am the thick man that I am today. But reconstituting it, I thought, brought back a flood of childhood memories. And I thought, well, this stuff is pretty good.
Yeah. It goes a long way. It's cheap and it goes a long way. So, all right. Well, hey, bubacoos.com/surf. Thank you very much. I'm going to cut to our intro music and then we'll kick off the show.
Great.
All right, Chaz, it is May 12th, 2022. We are remotely in the comfort of our own homes. And good morning.
Good morning. I love what you have behind you. How fun is that thing?
So it turns out to be the perfect surfboard.
I mean, I want to get one behind for the listener at home, not the 200 people that view the YouTube. David Lee Scales has behind him an Al Merrick. What is it called? What?
Free scrubber.
Free scrubber. It is so pretty. Is there a little wing on the side there?
Yeah. There's a little wing in the tail to narrow the volume back there where you put your foot, and then twin fins underneath. And we are giving a free scrubber away on June 1st. So this is just a little thank you that we do for our listeners who support our work at $5 a month. It's the building block of our business. And it really does go a long way. And I think the listeners at this point understand the value of keeping surf media independent. And so this is a little thank you back to the listeners who understand that.
It's a beautiful, beautiful board. Where did you ride it?
Huntington Beach only. I've ridden it around Huntington Beach the last couple of weeks. But I mean, it truly is all I want. It's like, I think this is my one board quiver, I feel, from now on. It's just, I'm not going to surf big, harrowing surf anymore, but this will hold in head high surf, and it's great in 1 foot surf. It's got perfect volume distribution for me. It was literally one of those boards where as soon as I paddled on it, I was like, man, the foam's everywhere that I want it to be for what I do and the way I do it. I guess I grew up watching Tom Curran ride exactly that, and even had boards, like my kind of initial boards that I started getting was in the mid 90s, but they were hand-me-downs or garage sale boards. So they were probably really from the 80s. And so they were just kind of fishy or twin fin type, thicker boards. This has less volume than those, but it's similar outline, similar distribution of the foam. And so it all feels very familiar and nostalgic to me.
I mean, it is one of the prettier surfboards I've seen in quite some time.
I'm going to bring it up later during Barrel or Nah, so get ready for that.
Yeah, got it.
I've got, so follow-ups. Remember we had I told a ghost story last week.
Sure did. I couldn't even tell your ghost story to my young daughter. I was so scared that I was going to scare her. I kept it inside.
Really?
Yeah.
I got a number of phone calls. Bruce from Austin, who has Blessed Are the Bank Robbers, the song, on Spotify.
Bruce from Austin.
Bruce called in and left a long call. The listener line limits you to 3 minutes, and his went beyond 3 minutes and it got cut off. So I emailed him back and said, call it in, keep it under. So hopefully next week he'll do that. But he has a crazy story of a ghost or a spirit who's following him from city to city on stops that he's doing with his band. So hopefully we'll get to that next week. But
would a Texan ghost scare you more or less than California ghosts?
By far more. Everything in Texas is more scary for sure. And I think his actually started in New Orleans, which makes it totally legitimate.
Oh, and that's the scariest of all.
Totally. But this is a different listener with another call.
Hey guys, this is Anthony. Just listening to your grid about the ghost stories, I want to quote the beginning of Riding Waves, the movie. I think it was by Cyrus Sutton. Great part with John Peck in there, by the way. I recommend it. Beginning of Riding Waves. Everything in the entire universe is made of waves of energy. Now, I mean, agree or disagree, it's kind of scientific, but ghosts, I mean, who knows? Electromagnetic waves, all that kind of stuff. When my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, died in my room, when I was living at home in my early 20s, and a few months later, I woke up and I saw a light outline of a person who was, 5 foot nothing, like my grandmother, just kind of watching me. And as soon I was afraid initially, and as soon as I was afraid, kind of turned and walked through my bookshelf through the wall, not to scare me. I don't know, but who knows? It could have been asleep, whatever. But everything in the entire universe is made of waves of energy, man.
What do you think?
Everything is waves. I mean, it's one of those things, I think, with these stories, these ghost stories, where like UFOs, right? Everybody talked about UFOs for a long time, blah, 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 blah. Turns out they're real. Or, I mean, real in the very practical term of there are unidentified flying objects out there, right?
There are, yes.
So I feel that there's enough ghost stories, enough people having these experiences where gotta be something, right?
I really do. I mean, there's got to be more than life as we know it. Let's put it that way. There is enough proof that the universe is vast. We know this much. And so the idea, or to think that the only life that exists everywhere in the universe is us on this planet, and it was all created for us, is just unbelievably narcissistic and naive. And so you have to leave open the option for all of that stuff. For me, I just want evidence of it. I want proof. And all of the ghost stories, even the one that I explained last week, it's a peek into the beyond, but it isn't hard evidence. So that's
What
where
would
I
it take
kind of
though? What would it take? What would it take for you, like a ghost coming up to you and saying, David Lee, I am a ghost?
replication, I think. So I experienced it once. If I experienced it more than once, and then also if it got caught on the security cameras, and then we can go watch the footage to verify because I recognize that I am a unreliable witness. Like it could have just been my eyes, or it could have been that I was tired.
You're asking a real high bar from the ghost here to get caught on the security cam and all that.
Speaking of everything is waves, I interviewed Drew Brophy and published that yesterday. So Drew Brophy, the artist, San Clemente based artist who rose to fame alongside Lost Surfboards, kind of created the motif of Lost, really. And the movement
was the first interview I ever did for Stab.
Was it really?
Mm-hmm.
That's like amazing.
15 years ago or longer.
What were you interviewing him about?
Just his art, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, did you know that he almost died of COVID a couple months ago?
Did. Yeah, we had it all over Beach Creek.
Yeah, so he's kind of recovering from that now and starting to really process the experience. And he was in a coma for nearly 30 days. And while in the coma, had a near-death experience where he was actually like, saw the light and saw the meaning of the universe, all of this stuff. And he's not ready to fully unpack or explain to other people what that experience was, because I think he's still processing it. But what he did have to say about it was very, very compelling and very real, and it was, everything is waves and everything is totally connected. All of humanity is connected and there's nothing to be afraid of. And all of the bad behavior, the anger, all of that stuff that you feel in life is due to fear, essentially. But there's nothing to be afraid of because we're all one. And maybe you weren't loved enough as a kid, and so you have fear of not being loved now, and so you start lashing out and acting out in these ways. But the reality is you can accomplish so much more without any of this limitation. And it sounded a lot like the way that people talk after an ayahuasca experience, kind of like they're reconnecting with ancestors and tapping into all of this other information that's out there. It was fascinating, but it does make me a lot more open-minded to the idea of ghosts that exist on some other plane. And maybe they're not actually dead ancestors, but just existence of other life forms,
I like that last week's episode whipped us so far out of the vortex of negativity that now we are on basically an ayahuasca journey.
We're now like on an existential experience collectively.
Everything is way, man. It's all light.
Did you ever see that Casey Affleck, Rooney Mara movie called A Ghost Story?
No, but I like Casey Affleck and I like Rooney Mara.
Me too. It's
Rooney.
Like Rooney Mara.
Yeah.
Rooney Mara, I think is her name, right?
Mara Rooney. Is her first name Rooney?
Her first name's Rooney because she's Kate Mara's sister.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, you're right. I thought you were rice weeding me again.
It is weird that there are some people's names that you could like
flip it
easily, It
makes more sense, Mara Rooney.
Right.
But totally. You're right, Rooney Mara.
David Lowery, I think is the guy's name, the director. You've seen his films, but anyways, it's, first of all, it's excellent. You should watch it. A24 is the production company. But
love A24.
Me too. So they're, young lovers, and he dies. And with the kind of funny gimmick in the movie, even though it's not meant to be funny, is that he's a ghost, but he's actually covered in a sheet. Like the ghost, the way that a ghost was represented in your childhood. But so she's living in the house that they lived in together, and he doesn't know that he's a ghost yet. He doesn't know that he died. So he's existing kind of in this ethereal plane and trying to make his presence known. Like, hey, why are you crying? And he's getting real frustrated and upset. So he slams his fist on a table. She hears a rumbling on the table. And so that's exactly like, you see something random, or there's something left behind, a butterfly or whatever it was that represents that person. Well, it's him trying to make his presence known to the person, but he exists on a different plane. So he can't do it obviously, but a little bit is seeping through until ultimately he realizes and accepts the reality or the fate, and then moves on to a different plane. And then she's able to move on with her life. So it was really well told in a simplistic way,
Did she ever go into her pottery studio and attempt to make like a nice clay bowl?
She did not. I think that was a different movie. We also got a follow-up call from the detective who got cut off with drinks at the bar.
Do we have the full story here? Is this the revealer?
We got the full story, and it's tangential to what we predicted and kind of better, to be honest.
Dave, Chaz, this is Johnny, the copper who called in a few weeks ago. I guess I'm here to complete the story regarding the homicide detective and his bartending daughter. And I'll do so by giving a piece of advice that I wish I could give naive 23-year-old me a couple years ago. If you are receiving free drinks from the hot bartender who happens to have a father in the career field that could probably take you places, do not bring a separate chick into that bar on a date. You can call it coincidence, but the free drinks stopped after that. And I'm no detective, but I think I know the answer to the mystery of why I was cut off. So yeah, sadly, no good bar fight, no chick fight for that matter. But one thing's for sure, I am no closer to being a homicide detective or advancing my career in that direction than I was those years ago. Just, I'm going to keep to my beat in the streets. You guys all keep up the work, and Utah out.
Brilliant.
I know, it really is. We said last week, it's really a sword that cuts two ways when it comes to dating the girl.
Yep.
And it looks like he's the one who got sliced.
But I love it that he got sliced in the worst possible way, right? Like a full-on cell phone. Because if you're dating her and it goes bad or whatever, you can at least like say, well, whatever. Like relationships are volatile, and I gave it a swing, and blew up, whatever, and now my career is wrecked. But to not wreck his career, but to derail some potential by just bringing another girl, like that's a straight up lose-lose right there.
Totally. And he doesn't get free drinks anymore.
Exactly. I mean, it's a lose-lose-lose, but he should go back to that bar. I wonder how long ago this happened. He said a couple years, right?
Yeah.
He should go back in that bar and make a grand gesture, not this Kelly Slater gesture of I'm going to date you for 15 years and consider marrying you in the future, but just go in and say, I was wrong, baby.
It's funny in hindsight, how many chicks were making themselves available to you or even throwing themselves at you without you knowing when you were young?
Zero.
Oh, really? Like in that scenario, that girl was making advances towards him, and he's so oblivious that he brings another date in and rubs it in her face, but without him really knowing, But I remember, if I look back in high school and even after high school, there was very obvious times when women were being very forward with me that I was just so clueless and dumb. Naive, innocent and naive, and probably afraid too, to be honest.
I bet it happens all the time to stinking Utah, though. Like he's a surfing cop out there walking the beat. I mean, yeah, I bet Utah is quite the catch.
I love that he signs off with you. He's identifying with Keanu Reeves in Point Break. He's taken on Keanu Reeves' character.
Love it.
It's hilarious. Let's talk. So getting into surf news, finally, the Snapper event, the Challenger Series event just wrapped up.
How much did you watch?
all told, 3 hours, I'd say.
I think I watched more of the Snapper event than the Margaret River event, oddly.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, honestly, so one thing that I think they did real well in this was following up the Margaret River event so quickly. So like a lot of these surfers that we were invested in getting cut off the CT, we automatically get to see fighting for their spot back on the QS or the CS, I guess. And there's also enough, while I don't like the large format generally, there's enough surfers to where there's a ton going on and it is exciting. I didn't feel a need to watch 8 hours a day of it because they're not all that world-class surfers, but there is enough storyline to where I could see, oh, coming up, Julian Wilson's heat's coming up. Let's see what Julian's up to and then plan my day around that, you know?
The train wreck at the end of conditions, I mean, it got so bad. That's when I really got sucked in. Like surfers getting absolutely swept down the beach with the current. Like there was no way to stay in position. Yeah. It was like howling side shores in garbage surf. And for some reason I was transfixed, not because there was something odd about it. The way like professional surfing as a sport is funny. Let's just be honest. It's funny, right? Yeah. At some point in there, I don't know when, start a day, they shortened of the finals day, I think they shortened the heats to what? Were they 20 minutes? Did you watch any of that?
Yeah, but they did overlapping.
No, there was like, I think, were they overlapping? I don't remember.
Well, they did overlapping. No, they did overlapping up until the round of 16, I think.
But it was head to head in like 20-minute heats, which was with these like weird conditions where if you can shorten, like it'd be like playing basketball, right? And the ref's showing up one day and saying, nobody's really feeling it tonight. This game is going to be 40 minutes. We're going to,
right.
Like, how random is surfing that you can completely arbitrarily not only change the format, you can change the time, you can change basically every part of the professional surfing experience. You can throw a bunch of people in, you run overlapping, you can do this, that, and the other thing, right? Like, I was just, as I was watching the horrible conditions and pondering it, I was thinking, wow, this is straight up, love it. Love that it's so wacky, but it is not a sport. Like to treat it as such is bizarre.
It's right. It's not a sport, but it needs to be malleable.
Sure.
Because the conditions are ever changing. But I think also the reason why you were engaged is that it's relatable. Surfing waves like that and seeing how people pick the gems out of them is what we try to do at the beach every day. But I think the WSL has figured out a good combination of events because I don't want to watch the CT surfers battle it out in conditions like that. I also don't want to watch a 1000 event, QS event with 200 surfers battling it out in conditions like that. But I do love the 96 surfer format at a good, like it literally at a world-class wave that on a one day has epic surf, on the next day has mediocre surf, and that's relatable. So I think that they figured out the Challenger Series after the cut is a great solution.
I like that two surfers went home every single, I mean, at the first rounds, right? There's 4 surfers in the water, 2 are gone. There's no off to the elimination round. They are packing their bags and going home, dropped out at equal 96 or whatever you are, right? Like
totally.
That part is fun. I was dipping my toe in and I thought, oh, this is a very, it's fine. This is for a surf fan. This is a fun little thing to have on the back end of a CT event.
Yep, totally. One of your headlines that came out of this event was best female surfer on earth and LGBTQ plus icon. Keala Kennelly returns to competition. Surfers shock loss in opening round, or suffers a shock loss in opening rounds of Boost Mobile Gold Coast Pro, ! Keala Kennelly, why is she back in competition?
I mean, per the article, so I was flipping through as I want to do pour my morning coffee and flip through the surf news and saw the title, best, what is it specifically? Because the way it's worded.
Best female surfer in the world.
Best female surfer in the world returns to competition, something like that. And so I clicked on it. I think I was assuming it would be Steph. I was thinking, well, why is she returning? And then read Keala Kennelly and had a hearty chuckle. but then went over to read the article, and she was returning, she says, because she just rehabbed her hip and had been out of the water, but she had done all this work for equality and hadn't really gotten to taste the fruits of equality. So was headed over to Snapper to, I suppose, be equal.
And lost in round one.
Lost in round one, even though she's the best female surfer in the world.
So is that self-proclaimed title?
No, then I think it was some New York Times article that this was like a health and wellness website that was quoting the New York Times article. But in the New York Times article, they referred to as the best female surfer in the world.
Was it written a long time ago?
No, it was, I think, from last year. Yeah.
Wow.
Oops.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. First of all, yeah, I'd see Keala should rally for a wild card at Pipeline, essentially, to test her new, her new parts. Yep. and vie for equality. I can't imagine her, even in her prime, making it through heats at Snapper. Unfortunately.
No, I mean, no, especially not with, I mean, yeah, the comments in the Beach Grit thread of the last day of the event, talking about how exciting, which we've talked about here before, but the upcoming crop of young female surfers are, like the Caitlin Simmers and the Molly Picklums. Like, that was fun surfing to watch, right? Like,
totally.
I was watching as many women's heats as the men's heats, and those girls were ripping. And so for Keala to come in, I think is it's all fine and good. You do whatever you want to do, Keala Kennelly, but also, man, there's a hot crop of young girls coming up.
It's the same thing goes for Kelly Slater. It's just Snapper's not the right venue, unless it's pumping, of course, for him to really contend with a young crop. But speaking of Caitlin Simmers, insane to see her win the event. So congratulations, Caitlin Simmers, Caleb Robson, coming off of the CT. Phenomenal. Caitlin Simmers turned down her spot on tour last year, even though she qualified at the age of, I think, 15, and then shows up for the first CS event and smokes everybody in that too. So incredible.
Yeah, I mean, she is going to be fun to watch when she hits the CT.
Yeah, I totally think she can she could be one who wins a world title in her first year. Yeah. She's super strong. In other updates on the CT level, Sally Fitzgibbons, who just got cut off the CT, even though she surfed, I think, 13 years without ever missing a single event. She and Yago Dora have already been awarded the wild cards for the 2023 season. So in addition to the wild card, they will be the first replacement for any events in 2022. So they're guaranteed a spot on next year's tour. But if there's anybody who bows out of these last 5 events this year, they'll be the first replacement.
The wild card thing is so weird. It seems like there's an endless amount of wild cards.
Well, there aren't, but it's arbitrary. It's relatively arbitrary or the WSL gets to pick essentially who they give the wild cards to. And so I think Sally's an easy pick on the women's side because, she's been around for a long time. On the men's side, it's a little harder because there's a number of young surfers, Carlos Munoz, Liam O'Brien, who are just ready to kind of give their shot on the world tour. And the picking of an old established. Yeah, exactly. Joao. So the what it really came down to is the WSL picked older established surfers who have already had a couple of laps, but really haven't capitalized on those laps, rather than young ones who could come up and be, disruptors, which is kind of an odd decision.
I mean, it's a tough one, I'll say. The whole wildcard thing in general, with sort of a layer of, I feel like, of trying to make it legitimate. The only thing that they should be caring about or doing is who is the surfer people actually want to watch, and giving, that's all that matters, is seeing, like, I have no beef with them awarding Gabriel Medina the rest of the season wildcard, right?
Right.
Sure. That is entirely unfair, right? That is unfair to every single surfer who is putting the work in, traveling, doing the best they can, blah, blah, blah. To have this guy, say, I don't feel like it for whatever reason. I'm not delegitimizing his reasons, but for him not to surf and then be awarded the wild card for the rest of the season, entirely unfair, rude, mean. The complete right decision. Of course, I want to see everybody wants to see Gabriel Medina surf. That's the only thing they should care about. There should be, I feel that they always try to have sort of a reason behind it, right? Like, well, this is why, and this is why it is fair. None of it's fair. It's all arbitrary. The only thing they should be doing is, who do people want to see? Do people want to see Sally Fitzgibbons? Maybe. Like, the mainstream media really dug its teeth into that story of her getting cut. And so maybe as part of, I don't know, if, whatever reason, the appetite for Sally Fitzgibbons may be there, but that's the only thing they should be caring about. Who do people want to see surf?
Yeah. And I don't know that there's a better pick than Sally, and on the men's side, it's a little bit of, there's not a real obvious pick. Like, I would argue that I'd rather see Carlos Munoz because he's new and he's fresh and I'm interested in him over Yago Dora, but just as many people would argue that they want to see Yago. So it's kind of a toss up there.
But I don't know. Yago is like a seasoned professional at requalifying. Just let him go requalify. That's what he does, right? Like those.
Which is probably how they felt about Joao. Like he will requalify on his own. So
Joao might, but Joao is way more exciting than Yago. Yago's just, he's like, that's what they do. That's what him and the Jats and Andres do, right? They go requalify. That's their job in life is to requalify. Go let him. He will not, Yago Dora will not requalify. He's an expert at requalification.
Well, the woman who got the wild card for the rest of the 2022 season, kind of alongside Gabriel Medina, is Caroline Marks. So she should be back at G-Land.
See, this is a weird thing. I didn't want to speculate. We've touched on it on the show. Like, the fact that she disappeared for a listed medical reason, like, entirely gone. You've mentioned it, right? Like, the Instagram only sponsor posts. And then she's coming back, which is fantastic, right? Caroline Marks, a ripping surfer, up and coming phenomenon. Think of another sports league where a major star disappears and nobody says anything about it. Like, I know that it's not our right to know, right? But any other sports league, if one of the stars vanishes, then there is talk about why.
Right. Speculation.
Sure. We're not even like real facts. Like, people get to the bottom of, this is what happened.
Well, you and I are kind of the only ones in a position to even have that conversation. The WSL isn't going to have that conversation. All other surf media wants to play nice with the WSL to get access for interviews and that sort of stuff. And so it's us. And
to speculate on the health of a young girl feels like, obviously, is not a cool thing to do. Also, she is a notable star in the quote sport of surfing, and it's weird that the World Surf League doesn't at least provide some kind of detail of why one of their stars left.
The detail that they did provide, it's always one sentence, and it's that she withdrew. Yeah, she withdrew after the pipe event for medical reasons.
Yeah, but I mean, talk about a large tent that can include many, many things. And like, of course, anybody who says, shut up, leave it alone, fair, but then you can't have sport. You can't have these, like, you can't have your cake and eat it here too. Either these people you're promoting and you're trying to get people to invest in, fans to invest in, to actually watch the product, or you're not, right? Where WSL seems like they're not, like, or eat our porridge and like it.
A listener pointed out to me a likely reason for why she withdrew and what's been going on. And if you run it through that filter, it makes sense why everybody would not be saying anything. And what they pointed out was just that her body looks a lot different than it used to.
Okay.
So if you kind of consider that, then it makes a lot of sense. Then it's like, oh yeah, that's not for anybody to be talking about,
Right.
So
Great. We'll leave it alone.
leave it at that. Leave it at that. Astute observation from a listener and makes perfect sense. But Gabriel Medina also has an update. Derek Riley just posted an interview. I guess it was from Brazilian Surf Media, but the headline that he wrote was Mammy of Gabriel Medina goes nuclear in interview concerning son's short-lived marriage to Sports Illustrated model Yasmin Brunet, I guess would be how it's pronounced, and says Gabriel started to go weird and I knew it wouldn't last. It wasn't love, is what his mom said. Did you watch this interview? Do you have any insights here?
I have not. I read the headline this morning too while I was getting ready to podcast, so haven't had time to even digest.
Yeah.
Mammy Medina's explosive allegation.
She said that Gabriel is intense in everything. He is intense to fall in love, intense in everything, but the passion ultimately ends. So mom knows best. Oftentimes, often before the son ever figures out that mom knew exactly what she was talking about. And so the part that was interesting to me about that is that he's passionate and intense in everything, and then the passion ends. And so it makes me feel like the competitor that we've seen in Gabriel Medina, we may see an end to that.
Passion for surfing over. I mean, he's won his world titles now, right?
Yeah, 3.
Yep, he's got it. If he's out there, he's probably certainly has enough money and investments to see him through. If he goes and paddles out at G-Land and thinks, I don't care, then yeah, he's gone, right? Should be.
I think like Kelly Slater's had moments in his careers that where he didn't have any of the stress or pressure of winning world titles, and that's when he performed at his best, when he relinquished all of that. So there could be a season or even maybe just an event of Gabriel Medina where he's just free surfing without any of that constraint. But I ultimately think that at a certain point, portions of his past life will creep in and he'll try to be competitive. And if he's not going 110% in that mode, he won't, it'll be a little half-assed and not be able to take down maybe like a Idolo or a Gabe or a John or something like that.
It'll definitely, I mean, that's obviously one of the main storylines coming into G-Land is what form Gabriel Medina will be in.
Right. Exactly.
And there's no telling. But yeah, the passion ends comment, I think, is very telling.
It's also I don't love mom going into the media and giving interviews about her son, full stop, Like I understand Gabe engaging in media interviews because that's part of his job and all that sort of thing. But having your mom go and do it feels like a real slap in the face, almost no matter what she says. Even if her intention is to praise him publicly, the media is going to pick it apart and read into it and all that kind of stuff. And it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, seems like a bit of a rough one, but also she seems like a bit of she enjoys the spotlight, right? Like she had this son and she tasted some of the fame or notoriety or whatever. And then especially as the marriage blew up. So now maybe she's like, ooh, I'm a media personality too. So
yeah, maybe.
Suck it.
But yeah, Dirty. I just feel like if there's any, you should always be trying to mend the relationship, I suppose. And from Gabe's perspective, I don't think that that's a move forward towards mending their relationship. And especially if he's down and out, because obviously he went through a divorce this year, or he's going through a divorce this year. It's like kicking the man while he's down.
Oof. Yeah. Well, maybe he'll shake it all off at G-Land and go smack everybody in the mouth. Did
you finish Ozark yet?
Not yet. I can't.
It's
done with episode 2, I think.
Okay. It's heavy with the themes of the sins of the father, and how they, like, that show started with, we're going to protect our kids from this essentially thing that we're doing. And this thing that we're doing will allow our kids access and opportunities that they would never have otherwise. But we're always going to shelter our kids from this. And throughout the seasons, you see the kids being corrupted and then involving themselves in the family business, so much so that in this final season, Jonah's doing accounting for, a heroin opium operation. Well, this is the direction that the finale is going, is how much or little do the kids get wrapped up and involved in this. And so Gabriel's storyline reminds me of those themes as well. It's a heady theme.
In Gabriel's case, though, wouldn't it be that the sins of the son, that his parents then, or at least Charlie and his mom, become wrapped up in media celebrity land, and then, they can't untangle themselves?
That's part of why the theme is so heady, is you don't know which direction it is, because an argument could be made, Charlie and mom were creating this little robot. It was their kind of diabolical desires, their unfulfilled potential in themselves that they're imposing on this kid. And the kid grows up and then has awareness and so starts to rebel. Well, the mom wants to lay the trap even denser around her kid. So she takes to the media. The kid's not listening to me anymore. I'm going to the media to then Jedi him back into my space. Like, I don't care if he's down. I'm going to kick him while he's down because he's not listening to me. I'm going to force him to listen to me. That could be what it is.
I truly hope that the make or break cameras are locked dead on Medina. I'm sure they are, for his comeback.
On Medina, but also a separate camera crew in Brazil following mom.
For sure. Because I would imagine she would welcome it too.
Yeah. And it's dirty that we even care. It's dirty that we're even having this conversation.
Yeah, but it's great. I mean, that's back to the theme of sport. This is sport, right? Like, you watch them on the field and then you are fascinated, or at least intrigued, by them off the field.
We're in Kardashian land with this one, dude.
We are. It's great. Give me more.
Kelly Slater did an interview with the Grin Reapers, which apparently is a podcast. And they were on the beach at Margaret River, kind of filming an episode. And they got Kelly on the mic. Did you see any of this 40-minute tell-all?
I think Derek covered this one, so I did not check it out.
For any Kelly Slater fans or anybody who's just interested in Kelly, it is well worth watching. It's always interesting. I mean, Kelly, he's just lived such a storybook life that they weren't asking him for any like insights on, his greatness or anything like that. He was just telling stories essentially throughout. And he had some intimate encounters with one of the co-hosts in the past years on the North Shore. So kind of they unpack that story. So there's a familiarity between the hosts and him. And so it's just like sitting around while guys are just telling stories and rehashing old stories. And Kelly has lived such an interesting life that he's got some crazy stories, and they were well told, and they weren't in any way him trying to like show off or anything like that. But it was kind of weird in that it gets dark real quick. They were asking him about surfing heats and kind of randomness and what you wish you would have been doing and all this other, like, don't you wish you were at the box getting barreled rather? And somehow that gets into a story about somebody drowning in front of him when he was young. And then that rolls into another story of somebody getting hit by a car, pedestrians getting hit by a car, and these kind of macabre stories that he experienced throughout his life. And the hosts are pretty quickly like, they're having a lighthearted conversation, and then Kelly's like 3 death stories in 10 minutes later, and they're kind of traumatized by it. But it's very, very interesting. Like, they just got wrapped into it. Kelly went off and they're traumatized, but it's really good storytelling. So you're in, but it was pretty funny.
I mean, Kelly, leave it to old Kelly Slater to throw the perpetual weird curveball.
Very weird, but I'm in.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's why he's maintained his pole position, I think, in surfing over all of these years, not just because of his prowess, but because right when you think, Kelly Slater, he goes and throws death stories at you.
It was crazy. But it also wasn't self-serving. It wasn't him saying, I'm a hero and I saved this guy who drowned. It was actually the opposite. This guy was drowning in front of him. Kelly didn't realize it. People were motioning to him to try to let him know. And he just didn't figure it out. And the guy ended up dying. And Kelly's lived with the knowing of he could have saved that guy's life, Pretty interesting. Yeah. Well worth watching that interview. It's on Beach Grit. I had a listener write in on a subject that you and I kind of touched on with Cersei on air at one point. And I don't know, maybe the listener didn't catch that episode and he kind of goes a different direction with it, but I'll just read it to you and let you chime in. He says, hello, David and Chaz. I wanted to ask your opinion on homeschooling your child so that they can surf and pretend to be an aspiring pro surfer. It's my opinion, having raised 3 college graduates, that these parents are absolutely ridiculous. It is absurd to believe that their child has a shot at becoming a pro surfer. If their child has reached the ripe old age of 12 and they are not winning every contest they enter, getting sponsorship offers, absolutely destroying the competition, they really don't stand a chance of becoming a pro. And even then, probably don't have a shot. The parents are depriving the child of an education, social experience that you only get by attending school and getting an education. They have a better chance of being an NFL player or professional baseball player, also a pipe dream for most. So sorry in advance for the terrible grammar, but keep up the work. Mark, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I don't know. I think that in this day and age, the time we live, it's not the time. It's like, these are just odd times, right? So I think ripping a kid out of school is not what it was when we were kids, right? Like, it's just different, right? But if you're gonna be ripping your kid out of school because you're shoving this dream, your dream of them, or even their dream of being a professional surfer, like, I don't know, to have this completely unrealistic idea of either yourself or your child is not great. But also, I don't know, dream big. Parents, if that's what your kid really wants to do and you have a way to do it, maybe all their time in the water, will serve them in a different way than sitting in a classroom, right? But yes, I think thinking that you're actually going to make it, or that your kid is the one who's going to break through, those are long odds. But
yeah,
I'm a sort of long otter.
Yeah, but pinning it on the professional surf career is a weird thing to pin it on. If the kid loves surfing and is happy surfing, then absolutely empower your kid and give them every opportunity they can to do the thing that they love to do. But the idea of being a professional surfer is a moving target anyways. There's no guarantee that you're ever going to get to that target, even if you're the most talented surfer in the world. Yep. There's not a direct path. And so it's a weird ass target to try to hit. There is a path to becoming a professional NFL player or a professional baseball player, but surfing specifically, it's a weird one to try to chase.
Yeah. And especially, if it is, you're exactly right. You're exactly right in that there's no, like in ballet, right? There's ballet academies and all this, right? Or for football, baseball, whatever, you go to school and yeah, there is and if you're not good enough, you're not good enough. And you learn that because it's not an individual pursuit, which I suppose that's talking to the showrunner of Make or Break. I interviewed him right before our podcast last week. And when I brought up, there's no stakes in surfing, right? Like, that's the problem with it, is there's no stakes. He said, I think the stakes are higher because it being an individual sport. Like, you drop off tour or whatever, and you're self-employed, you're done, right? Those are major stakes, where I suppose that is also true for the coming up into it. There's no path. You're exactly right. There's no actual path to become a pro surfer. You can be a Mason Ho, or you could be a Gabriel Medina, you could be a John Florence, right? Those are all 3 very different paths of the same thing. And obviously those are the sort of best examples of it. But yeah, there's no way to do it. But if you want to try, go have fun, but don't put something on your kid if they don't want it.
Well, the other weird thing about this is that the harder the parent tries, it actually has a negative consequence. there's an inverse correlation between the soccer parent who's the surfer parent equivalent and their child's success. We could name on one hand the versions that did work out. Gabriel Medina's worked out. Kaloe Andino's worked out. Kanoa Igarashi's worked out. But there's a long, long list, hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands long, that didn't work out. And Jack Robinson is one that could have imploded, And I think that the Kanoa example could actually be argued because his parents weren't really, they were allowing professional surfing to be a path, but they were really just allowing their kid to surf. It wasn't that they were foisting the career on him. It was Quicksilver who picked him up early and foisted that on him, and his parents supported it and allowed it to happen. But it wasn't like they were pushing for him to be a pro surfer,
Yeah. I mean, the pushing, yeah. I mean, it is, yeah. Oh, I was going to say, looking at the bottom, and the Challenger Series is not the bottom level, right? The Challenger Series is like fully legit. Looking at the amount of names there in the draw, and this is like big time. Looking at the amount of names and thinking, I don't care, nothing to me. Imagine the amount of names at a 1 star or 1,000 or whatever, and being able to break through that noise with either personality or talent that is a hard job. And even imagine the kids who are surfing at the 1,000 levels, they're like legit good too. Like, I mean, they're good enough to surf, at a professional level. Like maybe they're not getting paid for it, but they're good enough to, but yeah, the amount of noise to break through, I suppose, like anything else, like thinking you're going to be an actor, right? And going to Hollywood and thinking that you're the one who has the thing, but pouring water on all those dreams is silly too, right? Like, hey, I don't know, maybe you are the 1 in a million shot that, that has what it takes as a surfer too.
Well, Stab Magazine did a great article on the cost of doing the QS series and penciled it all out. And they gave 3 examples of last year. Zeke Lau, Connor O'Leary, and I forget who the third person was, and what it cost them and how much they earned in prize money to see if it was worth it. After all the expenses, Zeke Lau, who actually qualified for the tour, so he did well. He won event, or didn't win events, but he did well in events and earned good money. He profited $50 after you back out the expenses. And the other 2 guys, Connor O'Leary and the other person who did also qualify, lost money. So,
but that's not accounting for their sponsorship deals.
Well, Zeke was the only one who had a sponsor in that. And then once Connor qualified, then Hurley picked him up.
On the flip side of that, though, true. It's a hard way to make money. But did you see the mathematician on Beach Grip break down how many hours you surf to win a world title?
No, I saw the article, but I didn't read it.
It's fantastic. It is very, very, very funny. I mean, it's just well researched and great. But you have to surf, or you surf, the winner of the title surfs about an hour, 30 minutes over the course of the entire season.
In events.
Yeah, but that's up and riding. That's
unbelievable.
That's how much surfing you do to win a world title, is an hour, 30 minutes.
That's unbelievable. Hilarious.
Really. So yeah, it costs a lot, but it's also really easy.
Right. So that listener, Mark, said that he sent 3 girls to college. So I actually emailed him back and I'm like, did that seem like a good investment to you? And he replied and said, hey, thanks for getting back to me. I feel as though college was a great investment for my children. My 2 daughters both work in healthcare, one in biotech, and my youngest is in PA school. My son is a school teacher. Anymore, a person needs a bachelor's degree just to work the counter at Enterprise Rent-A-Car or be a manager at Office Depot. Honestly, I feel young people have a lot more options if they get an education.
I'm all for education. I'm all for love my college experience, et cetera, et cetera. But again, I just feel that these are different times, wild times, unprecedented times, and there are more paths open or possible.
I think the widest paths are open for you if you are a leader and you are creative in some way. If you have, and I don't know that you could teach either of those skill sets, but if you happen to have those two skill sets, then an education will absolutely help you leverage those things. And if you don't have an education, there's never been a better time to have those skill sets because the world is your oyster. You can start from scratch and access an audience. You have technology at your fingertips. You have access to everything at your fingertips. And there's so many, because of the way that our current generation has been raised, I think there's less leaders now than ever before. There's less discipline than ever before. So if you kind of have those things, you can stand out.
I wonder if the listener called, 3 daughters in college, if looking back, he would have rather scraped the tuition together, bought a Bubba Coos franchise, and just given it to his daughters.
Have them make burritos.
Exactly. At their own burrito store, though. They own it. It's their Bubba Coos.
They could. They very well could. I'd be curious too. Work ethic, I think, is a great thing. Being raised in a family business like that, that's a great thing.
Perfect.
All right. Shall we go to commercial break and then come back with Barrel or Not?
Let's do it.
Chaz, I'm shaking up my morning nutrition right here, all in one 20-second process.
You know, I was worried about you. I was worried that you hadn't had your athletic greens today and was thinking how you'd start to feel draggy by lunch, how by mid-afternoon you'd start to get snappy with your child, be grouchy.
Never fear.
But now that I see it, I know your day is going, no matter what falls in your path today, David Lee Scales, you're going to be A-okay.
I'm going to conquer it. I'm going to conquer it. I'm going to be fortified. Look at how dark green it is.
You've got that right there is the best of organic New Zealand. If there was one country I'd want to drink, it would be organic New Zealand.
Fully agree. If you could only eat or drink one country,
without a doubt,
absolutely New Zealand. The butter, the lamb, the beef, the fruits and vegetables, the wine.
Every part of it. Like I thought when we first started our partnership with athleticgreens.com/surf that they were a New Zealand company, but no, they're not, right? They are based US based, which means that the founder went around and sourced the best material on earth for his product. And of course, I mean, it's no brainer that it comes from New Zealand, but smart.
So the founder specifically was super healthy. I think he was like a marathoner, and was constantly sick. So he's like doing everything right, healthy, but had constant stomach problems. And so he took his health into his own hands and he's like, I got to figure this out because modern medicine, all these supplements I'm taking are not doing the trick. And so ended up, sourcing all the ingredients from New Zealand, making a green powder drink, and then it helped him. And so obviously he turned it into a business. Turns out everybody loves it. It's kind of solved a complex problem that a massive industry had failed to solve simply. And that is the success story of Athletic Greens. And we get to benefit from it. And it shows up at your door. It's one scoop. It's simple.
You will not be angry. If you have not tried yet, just give it a whirl. Give it a 1-month whirl.
I was wondering about your daughter being sick. Does she drink Athletic Greens, or has she tried it?
I'm gonna start getting her on it.
I think so.
I hoard my Athletic Greens. I keep it away from the family just so I can be a healthy one. But from now on, she's gonna be on the program too.
We can have them send you a supply for her specifically if needed.
Yes. Okay.
Cool. Well, listeners, if you're not already on the program, athleticgreens.com/surf. All right, Chaz, welcome back to the show. We've got Barrel or Not to close out. And The first one is in relation to all the ghost stories that we've been receiving and discussing. Using a Ouija board.
Have we done this before?
I don't know. Have we?
I think we have. I'm a straight no barrel. Ouija boards scare the living daylights out of me, David Lee Scales.
I fully agree with you. The fact that Mattel or whoever the manufacturer is of the Ouija board has gamified bringing spirits and demons into people's homes, and actually not only gamified it, but designed the game for children, essentially. Like the marketing and all that kind of stuff. They made a movie about it. Like, this is encouraging young people to bring in demons into their house.
To be Satanists, to not only bring in demons, to worship the devil. I don't know. I mean, do you think that Mattel or whoever makes it, Hasbro, whichever game company makes it, toy company makes it, has a real proper deal with the devil, where the devil says, went to the CEO one day and said, I will keep profits stable, keep modest growth. You have to produce this forever. The second you stop producing the Ouija board, not only will I tank your business, all of you will suffer pestilence.
Your debt is payable in death, essentially.
Yes. So
yes, I think that is true. I think that's exactly how this happened.
Because why in the world would they keep making a satanic toy?
Exactly. Yeah.
No reason.
This is an official corporation making a deal with the devil.
Yeah. Oof.
But I'm shocked at people that actually buy this thing. You have to, I mean, the cost benefit analysis here so heavily lands on the wrong side of risk that it wouldn't be worth it. Like, what's the most you get out of it? A fun game night. You know what? Scrabble has zero risk. Pick up a Scrabble board instead.
I mean, literally, you get a fun game night or demons racing through your house.
Haunting you. Yeah. Possessing your children.
I really don't understand. You are truly correct in calling Ouija board the worst or most horrible cost benefit on the face of the earth
of all time.
Yeah. So
although I would be very curious if anybody actually has played with one. Call in, write in, whatever. Give us your Ouija board story if you have a scary one.
Yeah, and how much fun it is compared to, say, Scrabble or Monopoly. Is it that much more fun than Scrabble or Monopoly that it's worth risking demon invasion?
I wonder, the people at Hasbro could create an actual benefit on the other side of the cost. Like, what if the Ouija board brought in health and wellness into your home if you landed on X or whatever?
I mean, the problem is the deal with Satan. Satan's not about health and wellness. Brings in cocaine and strippers.
That's true. All right. So barrel or not, definitely not. Do not purchase or play a Ouija board. All bad news.
But if you have, please call in with your experience.
Exactly. Barrel or not, adorning your surfboard with art.
Ooh, like yourself?
Either or. Like, remember how big sprays were when we were a kid, like airbrush sprays on surfboards? That was like a huge thing. And we don't really see that anymore. I never see it at the beach. I see it on Instagram, people doing board sprays, but I never ever see a sprayed board at the beach.
That is true. It is. I see it on Instagram all the time, but rarely is the board, especially for a person who actually surfs well, rarely do they paddle out on a sprayed board.
I see resin work at the beach, and that's cool. But I'm talking about like Kelly Slater drawing a big boobied chick on his board in the 90s. You do not see any pros doing that anymore. So adorning your surfboard with art, whether it's you or an actual artist, Drew Brophy, that was his whole thing. We don't really see that anymore.
I'm going to go barrel right now. I'm going to say,
I think so too.
I'm going to say there's seasons for everything, right? And I'm going to say the white playing board season was a great season, but it needs to come to a close, and we need to swing back into the, colorful, personalized, artistic surfboards. So then we can welcome back the whiteboard era later with like a real sense of relief and enjoyment that all that colorful garbage is now gone.
I agree. I interviewed Benji Weatherly yesterday, and we were talking about, so he was roommates with Todd Chesser when Todd Chesser died. And so Benji's very good friends with Todd's mom. And they, over the years, find Todd's boards, like old boards of Todd's on Craigslist or whatever, all over, like on the East Coast, West Coast, Hawaii, they'll pop up. And whenever anybody finds them, of course, they buy them and then give them to Todd's mom, Jeannie. But Jeannie used to airbrush and spray all of Todd's boards. And I can envision those boards. I knew exactly what that spray was like. I knew exactly what Pat O'Connell's sprays were like. I knew exactly, obviously, what Martin Potter's sprays were like. Like in the era that we were growing up, everybody had this branded identity of their surfboard art. And I miss that.
It's true. It's true. Like Gabriel's board is the same as Philippe's board, is the same as Idolo's board in terms of not dimensions, but in terms of how it looks. They're all white.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a how many stickers? And that's you really nailed something here. Identifying a surfer by the company he or she rides for, as opposed to the spray on their boards. Well, that's just corporate nonsense right there.
It's a missed opportunity for all surfers.
Yep.
They should be branding themselves with their own style.
Exactly.
First. Yeah.
And then whoever you ride for gets the halo benefit of your fabulous personal style.
Well, you've branded yourself so specifically that everybody wants a piece of it. And you exist on your own plane now, You're not pandering to the company, you're doing your own thing.
It would give work to struggling artists who could help see that. Oh man, a server would be smart. One in the middle of the pack would be smart to go get with like an image consulting crew and a artist, work out this is going to be you for the, this is what you're going to wear. This is your board spray. We're going to totally make you, we're going to rise you out of the middle tiers purely aesthetically.
I think this could be Sally's opportunity for Sally 2.0.
Great. I mean, Sally fits.
Yeah.
She's got the media attention now. Now she needs to continue giving them a reason to look.
If Sally comes back with this wild card opportunity and just does the same thing that she's been doing all along, and probably to a slightly lesser degree, just because she's not in peak form at this point, I will be so disappointed in her. This is a total opportunity for her to flip the script, rebrand entirely, do what you said last week, which is focus on creating an edit, focus on the free surf thing, add the artwork to your surfboards, and just make a whole new Sally and come back and just wreck house, shock everybody.
I mean, that's so true. Definition of insanity. What is it? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Don't go and think, just with a little more work, I'm going to get there. No, a little more work never got nobody nowhere.
Exactly.
Radical change.
Radical change. I want to see the headline for an article that Sally Fitzgibbons is insane.
Yeah, it might be today.
Perfect. Final barrel or Nas, fashion related, and wearing cowboy boots.
Rough. When I was probably kindergartner, sometime around there, maybe third grade, I wanted a pair of cowboy boots so bad. Like I really craved a pair of cowboy boots, and I never got them. And I look back on that moment now and think I'll never be able to wear them because I didn't get them then. I don't miss them now, but long way to say it. I think cowboy boots are like being a Valve. If you wore cowboy boots as a kid, if you started cowboy booting up as a kid, then you can continue cowboy booting up now. If not, coming in because cowboy boots are in fashion, or you think they're in fashion and wearing them, unless you're a girl, don't do it.
I feel like if you ride a horse, that's the appropriate attire for the horse. It serves a purpose. Anything short of that, the cowboy boot is only the most uncomfortable. It's the least comfortable shoe on the market that you could ever wear, and it serves zero purpose unless it's.
You know that for a fact? Do you know that they're uncomfortable? Have you ever worn a pair of boots?
When I was young, I wanted to be a cowboy. like prepubescent, like I loved Tombstone and I loved like that culture, not country music, not modern cowboys, but like old West cowboys I loved. And so, yeah, I had a pair, but I can't speak to the comfort because I was really going to put up with anything at that point just because I wanted to go for the look. They just look so uncomfortable to me.
But what if they're really comfortable?
There's no chance. They've got a heel. They're hard. And then they've got a big flip rocker in the nose. There's no way those could be comfortable. Those are strictly for sitting in a stirrup and kicking a horse.
It's true, except there's some men out there who make it look real good.
Well, let's put it this way in terms of comfort. They're not designed for walking. They're designed for riding a horse, right? So for what?
Ambling. For like bow-legged kind of walking into a saloon, that kind of
for moseying.
Yeah.
I'm going full nah on cowboy boots and wearing cowboy boots. I think they serve a function. And if you're not using them for that function, then you're a poser.
I'm going to go barrel. If you grew up wearing cowboy boots and or dabbled, if you're an adult cowboy boot wearer, as a man, if you just say, ooh, this is going to be my fashion now, then that is no barrel. But if you're a Brazilian, Mexican, if you grew up wearing cowboy boots and or you regularly ride horses, which that's a big category right there. I mean, that is a big tent. That's enough people for me to give it a barrel.
Okay. All right. Well, we stand on different sides of this one. I feel like with surfing, like if the water's cold, there's a certain sequence of suiting up. There's, spring suit, then you go full suit, then you go booties, then you probably go hood, and then gloves are kind of the last thing. I feel like there's a sliding scale of acceptability of how I'll accept a cowboy. Like if a dude walks in to a bar and he's wearing a cowboy hat, I think I'm more likely to accept that than a belt buckle. You know what I mean? Like a big belt buckle. If he comes in, the boots are probably the first level of acceptability, actually. If you walked in wearing kind of Wrangler jeans and a button down and you had cowboy boots on, I might presume I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and say you're a cowboy. Once you put a hat on, what's that?
You're at least in the agricultural industry.
Exactly. And I'm like, what are you doing in Orange County? Maybe you're just driving in from Riverside, passing through something. Once you wear a hat with those boots, you absolutely better be from Riverside agricultural community. Otherwise it's unacceptable. Once you add the belt buckle, you better be a Bronco riding rodeo guy, or that's completely poser.
I hear you. But also I'm going to say there's enough of those around that like proper, honest to goodness, hardworking ag bros or ranchers or whatever, where I'm going to give benefit of the doubt more often than not.
All right. Well, you're a more generous person than I. How long until we see Jonah Hill trying to take over the cowboy culture as for sure. I can already envision it, like him wearing cowboy boots with shorts as he's transitioning from surf culture into cowboy culture.
It'll be a full move to Austin too. Like he'll sell Honolulu, move to Austin. He'll still surf the wave pool as he's getting his surf, shaking that off. But yeah, to buy a ranch out there, Austin, horses.
The transitionary period is going to be the worst because he'll be wearing a Hawaiian shirt with a bolo tie.
It's going to be so bad, and still with a little bit of Jerry Garcia flair still on there. And that's what's going to allow him to transition, is he'll just think, man, I'm free. I'm on a big Grateful Dead trip here. So everything is possible.
It's going to be so cringy. And mainstream media is just going to lap
it up.
He has the worst style ever in the history of man, and they just shower him with praise.
He is regularly on best dressed lists.
It's crazy.
It's
wild. That's why we're independent. That's why we exist on our own independent plane.
Thank you for your $5.
Yeah, thanks. And you can win a free scrubber. So how about that?
I got one plug before we get off today.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Cersei Wallace, the wife, agent extraordinaire, and partner Sue Izzo are doing another sportsbusinessmastermind.com, sportsbusinessmastermind.com. Todd Richards. Do you know Todd Richards?
Yep.
Greatest announcer in action sports history is now an official part of the crew. So Todd is worth subscribing alone. But then this iteration of it, Brett Simpson's also going to come on. Brett Simpson, the U.S. Olympic surf team coach. And again, the whole thing is for if either you or you have a kid and you're thinking about what we just talked about today, I suppose, my kid snowboards good or surfs good or has an interest in going into this thing, not just as a professional, just the field in general, then it is well worth a sign up. And sportsbusinessmastermind.com, if you use the code BeachGrit at checkout, I think it's 15% off. So use BeachGrit, sign on up. If you have any interest at all, it is, they're the best minds in sort of action sport business are, guests and holding it.
This is the third or fourth one that they've done.
The fourth one.
Yeah, so it's going well.
Going well, yeah.
Awesome.
Success.
Awesome. Sweet. All right, ChazBeachgrit.com and at Surf Journalist is where they can find you. Do you have anything else until next week?
Just excited. There's nothing to be excited for next week, is there? We got no more pro surf. We got nothing.
Go to the beach. Go surfing instead.
It's been windy.
Yeah. All right. Well, until then, where we will meet in person probably next week at Album.
100%.
Okay, sweet. Let's do it. All right, Chaz. Until then, I'll have Hannah sign us off.
Bon voyage.